Howdy, Laoshi Lawrence McElroy here for Water Tiger School, taijiquan. Here in the Tai Chi shuffle on our ledger, not Qigong this time, but a Tai Chi focus. We'll start with a t-shirt. We're shooting this about a week before Halloween this year, 2024. This is my usual public class t-shirt during that time. A little honorarium to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, about as Halloween-y fashion-wise as I get. Oddly, though, since we've been doing this, what t-shirt have I worn how often thing, since the very beginning in March of 2020, between our YouTube channel and the initial Facebook Live series, this is only the second time I've worn this t-shirt. The first time was all the way back in October of 2020, and it was a Water Tiger for Sachem library program that had been suspended during the pandemic, and a piece of our Tai Chi lottery series. We were on the short slip, that particular video. So anyway, there's the fashion. We're going to have a focus today on the Shiah Dan Tien toolbox. We'll explain that when we get to that part of the video. We're going to start with, as we have been doing, a warm-up from the first set of Shibashi. As always, as we've been doing this sequence with the individual pieces from the first set, I always say that while we were doing our research on the first set of Shibashi, as it entered our lineage not that long ago, about a year ago, we found different pronunciations. Some were arguing that the actual pronunciation is closer to Shur Bashur. But the three times that I've been introduced to this particular set, or this approach to Qigong, each of the three instructors pronounced it Shibashi, and most of the stuff you find out there on the internet, and it's on the internet, so it has to be correct, right? Use the pronunciation Shibashi. Regardless, there are 8 sets. The first 3, I believe, I've read are the most popular, with the first one being the most popular of all. And it was created, it's relatively young in the world of Qigong. 1979, Lin Hao Sheng created. He was a very renowned Qigong practitioner, took up the art of Tai Chi, wanted to smash the two together. And that's why this particular approach to Qigong is referred to as Tai Chi Qigong. We have our own Tai Chi Qigong in our lineage. That is because it's based on yin yang theory, so grand ultimate Qigong energy work. So anyway, the piece we're going to do is the 12th piece in our set. For us, it's called Pushing the Waves. For others, it might be Playing with the Waves, or Playing with Waves, or I've also seen it Closing the Door. This is one of the pieces that sort of almost scream, hey, this sort of looks like Tai Chi. It's going to look like push in most people's approach to the 24 or the long form. I'm going to finish my mint here. So, generally, when I present this set, because each of the individual postures, exercises, have their own list of benefits. And it's a really long list if for each of the 18 movements. So I talk more about the fact how the gentle movements will foster leg strength, relaxation, flexibility, muscle functionality. They also stimulate the flow of blood, which of course then means this flow of qi through the body, helps create balance, releases blockages, opens up stagnation, etc. throughout the body. So in other words, Shibashi is generally practiced simply because it helps with your overall health and general wellness. And the set, I have to say, this makes you feel good. As I mentioned, the individual pieces have their own list, and I'm not going to try to fake you out and pretend that I'm not reading the cue cards here. 1, improves conditions related to the spleen, liver, and lungs, and decreases the instances and severity of insomnia. It's something to keep in mind. Strengthens the legs, as I mentioned. Strengthens the legs and leg energy. Can't even read. This is not good. This early in the video. This is number 2, by the way. Hip joints and waist. And 3, strengthens and improves kidney and bladder function and is beneficial for hypertension. The rocking action stimulates the yang quan, the bubbling well cavity, on the balls of the feet. That's kidney 1. So in the world of Shibashi, 3 is uncommon. It's usually longer than that. But there you go. So that's specific health benefits for the 12th exercise, pushing the waves, in the first set of Shibashi. So I'll start with the lower body. We start shoulder wide, usually go to the left first. Now, a word about that. There are 3 rocking exercises in the set. And generally we've seen them and researched them, and people only do one side. Not us, we do both sides. So I'm going to go to my left first, settle the weight in my right, and I'm going to step left. So I'm not in my formal 4 stance. I would be facing forward, but I'm very similar to it because this foot is here and I'm stepping this foot out to the 45. So I have, in comparison, since I'm facing this direction, there's my belly button. My toes are facing the same direction, and these toes are facing there, which puts them at a 45 based on the direction I'm facing. And what we're going to do is sit back and sit forward and sit back and sit forward. And the breath pattern through this, for us, again, people disagree about the breath pattern in the sets. Different people have different opinions, like with the names, with how to pronounce Shibashi. We do an inhalation on the way back and exhalation on the way forward. And note how the ball of the forward foot, in this case the left foot, comes up off the ground and then rolls back onto it. That would be the stimulation of the yang quan, the bubbling well cavity. The back foot stays grounded throughout. Not only heel down, but I'm also not rolling to the inside of the instep. So that's the lower body movement. As I mentioned, this looks a lot like push in the grasp sparrow's tail combination. Ward off, roll back, press, and push. Is on the way back, there's the inhale. On the way forward, there's the exhale. Going to come back. Here's 2. So we're into it. Hopefully you started with me in that first one. Here's 3. Going to honor the 18 movements in each of the sets by doing 18 repetitions. There's 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Nice soft inhalation, nice soft exhalation. 11, ideally, hopefully nasal, both ways. But if you have to breathe when you have to, breathe when you have to. I believe that was 12. 13. 14. 15. 16. Just 2 more. 17. And there, for us, only the first side. So I'm going to draw the hands in. I'm going to inhale. I'm going to turn my left toes toward the camera. My right toes out to the 45. Exhale for 1. Maybe adjust that foot a little bit. 2. Again, now the ball of the right foot's coming up off the ground. 3. Pushing the waves. 4. If you get an opportunity, you happen to be by an ocean. 5. It's kind of fun, playing right at the water's edge. 6. Provided they're not big crashing waves. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I'm going to bring the right toes in. I'm going to float the hands, palms down. Now, the Shibashi set has its own way of closing. The last exercise is actually the closing movement, which they, like the rest of the set, do multiple repetitions. But we just use, when we pull these out, we just use our standard Water Tiger School closing. So I'm going to identify my left foot. That's the one that moves. The right foot's going to stay down. I'm going to float my hands up, out, away from the body as I settle the alignments and structure into the right foot. As the hands draw in, the foot draws in. As the hands press down, I'm going to lengthen my body in this instance as the heel presses down and the hands drop. And that gives me room to sit, to pull my hands to the acupuncture point for the Shiah Dan Tien. And part of our focus in the next part of our video. How'd you like that segue? So, the Shiah Dan Tien Toolbox. We're going to present 3 tools. Now, throughout this entire video series since March of 2020, we've probably referenced each of these more than once. But we've never had a specific focus. So we decided we wanted to do the specific focus, sort of like a few weeks ago, we did the specific focus on finding the bows in Tai Chi, B-O-W-S, as in bow and arrow. 2, we're going to focus on the acupuncture point, the Qi Hai, C of Qi acupuncture point, which is CV6, conception vessel 6, also known as Ren 6. People place it in different, different areas. Some say, where the fingers meet here, which is a little low from our standpoint. Others, like 3 fingers, or some will say 2 fingers. I believe the Western measurement is like 1.5 inches. I can't remember how many, is it Qun it is? But I also always remember the acupuncturist whom I asked one time where a particular point was, and they answered my question with a question, well, where do you think it is? And I told them, and they said, well, that's where it is. So it is between the belly button and the pubic bone, but for us, closer to the pubic bone than the belly button. So 2 of the tools are going to focus on different ways of utilizing that as a tool. And then the last, the actual Shiah Dan Tien, the esoteric vessel, the lower field of elixir, that for us sets like an esoteric ball in the cup of the hips. And that's where all of our movement comes from. And that will be sort of the focus of the 3rd tool. So I have to give a shout out for the way that we refer to the first tool. Because the phrase that we use, the image that we use, is the Dan Tien is a camera. And the idea for that came from, I think, one of the best books on the market about Tai Chi. This is Tai Chi is a Path of Wisdom by Linda Mayoki Larhop. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And in this book, at the ends of some of the chapters, it's the ends of some of the parts, I can't remember how often they fall. It's been a while since I've read it cover to cover, is an exercise, I am a camera moving from the center. And it's presented just simply by, standing there and maybe moving and then moving around the room, that sort of thing. I think with the hands in this kind of position. Shooting film, I guess. But we use it very specifically in how we focus on the horizon line and our movements through what it is that we do. We also couple that with a secondary camera image, which is that of a Steadicam. Now, if you don't know what a Steadicam is, they actually, they're using software now in your smart devices that, you can run and apparently follow, your kid playing soccer down the field, and it's going to end up with one even shot. There used to be rigging that required that for cameras, and that's the idea of the Steadicam. I remember, it's going to date me a little bit. Back in my youth, I used to really like watching, for some reason, the Mike Douglas show. Google it. Many of you will have to. Let's just say Mike Douglas was long before there was ever a Google. But it was an afternoon talk show. And I remember an afternoon where he introduced the rigging of what was then the Steadicam. And this cameraman came on stage. They had the monitor of his shot, of his live shot. And it looked like it was miniature. But it like almost would go up to above my head, like this almost Ferris wheel-like thing. And one of the things he did was he jumped up and down. And the shot stayed steady. So that's the secondary thing, that it's going to stay even with the horizon line unless the posture calls for something different, or it's not going to tilt unless the posture calls for something different. But always that even steady cam, even as you're picking things up and setting them down, like, folding the leg in to either do a kick or maybe move into white crane, that the Dan Tien stays at one level. It's another way, or a secondary image, that we use to maintain the same height. The other one is the standing in water. And again, unless the posture calls for it, you never get to the point where you can't breathe at all. And again, unless the posture calls for it, you never get to the point where you can breathe through your mouth. So that's the first tool. Now let's put it to use. With some movement. So one way would be our basic 5-count walk. We move from stance to stance a little bit differently than some do. Everybody's different. I think the diversity is a strength. So this is my shoulder width. Water Tiger School is all about shoulder wide. Where the drop of the shoulder is should split the heel in that side in half. And that's my target lines. Our fore stance, back-footed around a 45. Front foot, toes should be forward or maybe in. Right? But both of my heels are on both my railroad tracks. And in this, if I have the Dan Tien as a camera, it's going to stay at the same height. I'm going to pan back over to the right side of the horizon line and then turn forward to fill the foot. Now within our Tai Chi walk, that's the ready position, sort of, that's the step, that's the stance. So really, the last piece is the ready position. That's 5 of our 5 count. 1 is the step, 2 is the stance. To get to the other side, instead of doing Zopan Bo, which is sitting on leg stance, or a twist step, and just going to the other side, we rock back. So the camera moves from forward, back a little bit in the direction from whence it came, over to the other side of the horizon line, and then stays steady as I settle my weight into that leg. And there's a little turn back. That little turn back as you settle into the leg, it's just a natural movement, is what triggers the foot out as a kickstand, no weight. And then I turn forward to fill that foot. And then again, back in the direction from whence I came, and over to the other side, and fill that foot. And step, And fill that foot. And come back. Ball of the foot comes up off the ground. Pivot. The thighs open like the pages of a book, right? I'm not pulling that thigh in, shearing pressure on the knee. I'm opening the thighs like pages of a book. That foot's to the 45. And that's the direction that I go. And step. And that's 2 steps, both sides. So I'm going to do a little casual close. We like to close things at Water Tiger School. And the reason that we call it casual is as long as the upper body and the lower body are doing something together. There, my hands released from where they were. They floated up. The back leg came in. I lengthened. I shortened. And there's upper body, lower body connection. But I could have very well finished, released my hands, came back here. I can do right to left or left to right. So that's the 5 count. If you happen to be in a group that does a twist step and has that setting leg stance in the middle, I'm here, I step, and then I do the twist step, and I step, and I do the twist step. So I am now quite literally going from side of the horizon to side of the horizon. And if we put that in the context of a posture, our go-to posture usually when we're doing demonstrations like this, when we're doing workshops like this, is always the first posture in the 24. As a matter of fact, it's also very early in our version of the long form. Parting the wild horse's mane. And I sort of locked myself into having to use it in this case because I told somebody that it would probably be our go-to for this one as well. So a little lesson in Water Tiger School's Parting the Wild Horse's Mane. Matching the 5 count. So we start with the ball. Ball is about the size of your torso. Notice how the arms conform to the ball, right? Hopefully you can sort of see that ball between my hands. Right? A little mimetic moment, right? Don't worry, I'm not going to walk against the wind. So this is where I'm at. This is my ready position. So in the 5 count, there is 1, because I'm settling into that back leg. 2, right hand drops down in this case, left hand comes up. They pass very closely together. Left hand's in front of the center of the chest, note the elbows down, dribbling the basketball. That's 2. So I have panned forward. I'm going to pan back and the pan back and the pan back and the pan back and the pan back. Don't worry, it's not the video, that was me. Back in the direction from whence it came, over toward the right side of the horizon line. Pivot, now I'm all the way over to the left side of the horizon line. Forming the ball, settling into that back leg, creates the step. I pan forward, back in the direction from whence I came. I pan over, I step. I rock back. I step, and I do my little casual close. And that's the Dan Tien as a camera and a steady cam with the 5 count walk. If you put it in the context of a twist step, it's just for those people who do twist steps. If you don't do twist step, you probably shouldn't do a twist step with me. Step. Step. So again, panning from horizon line to horizon line in the context of a steady cam. And the Dan Tien is a camera. A lot of times it comes into play very much so with our wave hands like clouds, because that does indeed move from horizon line to horizon line, as well as when we're walking backwards in something like Repulse the Monkey, you're going from side of horizon line to side of horizon line as you move backwards. So that's 1. Again, Dan Tien is a camera, make sure it's a steady cam. 2, I honestly don't remember where this came from. It could have very well been part of Tai Chi is a Path of Wisdom. I really need to reread that book. But it could have been somewhere else, because it's been in my head for a long time. And that's, again, using the acupuncture point, the Qi, the Sea of Qi, the acupuncture point for the Shiah Dan Tien, the lower field of Elixir, lower field of Cinnabar field, whatever, is having a string tied to that and pulling you along, right? And what that does, specifically, we usually mention it if somebody has a really tight low back or tight hips or tight glutes, because that tightness can pull you out of alignment. Notice a little pushing the butt cheeks back there, right? Very subtle, but it does take, we normally describe our vertical alignment, hips underneath torso, torso underneath shoulders, right? But that pull breaks that alignment. And I'm not talking about a strong tug. I'm not talking about doing this. Keep doing the keep on trucking guy. There's another old time reference for you. But it's that little tug, that little lead, that little pull. If I put it in the context of the Tai Chi walk again, and in this position, there can be a tendency, again, if you have a tight back, to sort of pull your hips a little bit out of alignment. That little pull forward keeps you in alignment. Step, and it pulls forward. So you don't do this. It might not even be the hips. It might be your torso. But if you have that pull at that acupuncture point, it keeps your torso, it helps you to keep your torso a little bit more erect. And it pulls you forward and step. And again, normally I'd have my hands in a stationary position, but I want to give you that image of the pull. And it helps, again, going into one-legged positions. If I happen to be going into white crane for us, we start at the 45. Don't have to worry about how we get there, but that double brush of the knee and open. Again, there can be a tendency to be here. And if you're, if that low back is pulling you out of alignment, now I have to work a lot harder. Now I don't. Work harder, work easier. Which do you want to do? And that sort of will take us into the third tool as well. But that's that idea, that little tug forward, which is a little bit different than just being held to the heavens by the Bakwe, not lifted to the heavens. This has that little tug. We also have walking the rails, where we walk the rails. And again, that little pull, keeping the hips underneath the torso underneath the shoulders. And my feet are way off camera. I got caught up in my walking the rails. So that's tool number 2, a string tied to the Dan Tien to just lightly pull you along. Just sort of a secondary concept in making sure that, a supporting concept to making sure that you stay in alignment. The final tool, the third tool, is again the vessel, the esoteric vessel itself, the sphere that sits in the cup of the hips, and that sphere moving in all directions at all times is what facilitates our movement. It's another way of helping us as we are in one leg positions. We first started using it at Water Tiger School. We were facilitating the crane frolics from the 5 animal frolics. And for us, we have one of the 5 frolics is crane walking on one leg. And there can be a tendency for, this to happen. And what the image is the Dan Tien as a black hole. It's a way to help you create and activation. So you're not, loosen the cage. I'm not talking about, making it a pelvic tuck. Again, not like the string either, making it a pelvic tuck. It's just that pull forward. But there's a suction. Things are compressing into the Shiah Dan Tien. And that idea of that compression can help hold things together as you're moving. So moving into any of the single leg stances, or we have a Fijing moment in our long form that involves a quick spin. And if you do that quick spin and you're all loose upstairs, it ain't going to go very well. If you're tense, it ain't going to go very well. But if the Dan Tien is a black hole, you can spin pretty well. Hopefully better than I just did. That wasn't, we didn't rehearse that one. But any of the one-legged stances, again, we could go to our white crane, right? Just that little, almost like sucking the breath in, and holding the internal breath almost, but not really. But being in that position and having that activation, just that little compression in. Or playing the pei pa. We won't go through the whole how we get into it, but this is the last transitional moment before we turn into our pei pa. Just, there's no other way to talk about it, because if you've ever seen a science fiction film and the black hole just sucks everything in, and that's that idea. But I edit that because, again, I don't want to be this way. It's not this kind of compression. That would not work very well. Right? Just a nice, light compression in, and you can move into whatever your one-legged stance might be. Find my structure, find my string. And that is the third tool. The Dan Tien is a black hole. Just that little activation into your core, into your center, into the Shiah Dan Tien can help you maintain your governance of your stance. Keeping in mind, Dan Tien is a camera, steady cam, string tied to the Dan Tien. The Dan Tien is a black hole. Our tools in the toolbox, meant to help you specifically as you're still working on your understanding of what it is that you're doing. Once you take ownership in what it is that you're doing, tools shouldn't really be necessary anymore. They're helpful in the beginning, but eventually, if you're always relying on a tool to do what you should be able to do through your own physical self, through your own understanding of your art, it's no longer a tool, it's a crutch. So seek to wean yourself from the tools eventually. Sometimes we have particular challenges that will always be challenges because we've broken something, we've had something fused together, so a tool may always be necessary. Then it's not a crutch. It's just it's necessary because you are you. I am me, you are you. We are all different. Okay, before I get too chatty, that's it. That's the Shiah Dan Tien toolbox. Dan Tien is a camera, steady cam, tying a string to the Dan Tien, and the Dan Tien is a black hole. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope you found this useful, interesting, something. And next time we'll be back. We'll be back with our Qigong series. We haven't chosen which of the 8 pieces of brocade. That series right now has been focusing on diversity in Qigong, and we're presenting different approaches to each of the 8 pieces of brocade. So hopefully we'll do that in 3 weeks. We're getting into the holiday season, so it might be delayed, might be early. That'll probably never happen. And as always, yes, we preview comments. At least we make that choice when we upload the video. We do that because when we didn't in the early days, we got spammed with, let's just say, they were trying to set us up with well-temperate people. So we went to the checking comments. Even if it's a bad comment, as long as it's presented honestly and helpfully, it will go through. If it's not, you won't see it. And of course, we do also post the video link on our Facebook page, which is a little bit more wild, wild west. But if you flame us there, yeah, you're not going to be able to see our page anymore. So be nice, constructive criticism, thoughts for what you want to see, etc. Always welcome, as is your attention. So once again, thank you very much. You'll catch us next time.